Well, good afternoon. It's currently 12:23 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is Caleb here with the Indiana Weather Network, Indiana Weather Online. Wanted to come on here, give you guys a little bit of a severe weather outlook, a little bit of an update today about what we're seeing and the trends that we're seeing going into this afternoon and overnight tonight across the region. Here's a live look at our radar. Had some showers and storms moving across north of I-70 earlier this morning. These are now moving out of the way and moving into Ohio. What we're going to see from here on out, we're going to see the skies clear just a little bit, partly cloudy skies here this afternoon. It's going to get really humid as well. We're going to feel the air mass start to destabilize a little bit here this afternoon across the region. We're going to see the skies clear. It's going to get very humid, and it's going to warm up rather quickly across the state here today. We're expecting widespread upper 70s to mid 80s across the region here today. It's going to be quite sticky out there. In fact, it's very humid already. Dew points are in the mid to upper 60s already across the entire state of Indiana. Going into this afternoon, into this evening. So I wish I had a set in stone forecast for you. But there's a couple different scenarios that could play out here this afternoon into this evening. There's not one scenario in particular that really looks to take precedence over another, and we'll talk about what they are here in a minute. Here's a live look at our HRRR model. This is a forecast model that we use here at IWN, showing us our rain here this morning is now moving out. Now, one thing I will say about the CAMs here this morning, our numerical convection allowing forecast models, is that there's some uncertainty within the models. The models are having a hard time agreeing on what we're going to see here later today. And I'll go into that here in a little bit. Here's a look at 5 p.m. here this afternoon. Most of Indiana is going to expect to stay mostly dry near term for the next couple of hours across the state. As the atmosphere destabilizes, the instability builds, and we start gathering up those ingredients needed for thunderstorms, but also severe weather. Around 5 o'clock, we do expect to see a couple of storms firing in Illinois. And they could perhaps move into Indiana later this evening. Think 5 to 10 p.m. time frame. Eastern Daylight Time is kind of when we expect we could see some isolated storms moving into Indiana. We do think the greatest risk for storms is going to be along and north of I-70 today. That general thinking hasn't really changed a whole lot today. And the reason is not that we can't support thunderstorms across southern Indiana. We don't really have a way to get the air to rise down there. We don't have a trigger. We don't have any forcing to allow the air to ascend, to cool, and condense into thunderstorms. We don't have a trigger down there. And that's going to keep southern Indiana mostly dry, we think, for the remainder of the day today and largely into overnight tonight as well. More thunderstorm chances coming to southern Indiana, we think maybe tomorrow. Here we are this afternoon. This is 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so getting into the evening hours here, could have a few scattered showers and storms across the region. Some of these could be strong to severe. We're going to have to keep an eye on these to see how they trend overnight tonight and into this evening. The main show that looks to be overnight tonight. We think the better chances for severe weather is going to be in the overnight hours tonight versus this evening. That could change depending on which scenario takes over. And depending on if we get storms to develop this afternoon. Kind of a conditional risk. Are we going to have enough of a trigger to get storms up this afternoon? That's really the unknown. The rain that moved through earlier today did leave a little bit of a surface boundary draped across north central Indiana that could act as a trigger to allow storms to get up and break the cap. But that's kind of a big question mark right now. Will that be enough of a trigger to get storms up, or will we remain dry until better forcing moves in overnight tonight? Those are some questions that we have yet to be answered, and we really won't know until we see how the atmosphere trends over the course of the next 5 to 6 hours. Here we are at midnight here tonight. A large, messy complex moving through southern Michigan. We do expect this is going to be the main show here tonight. This kind of a QLCS or MCS, kind of a big fancy term for a complex of storms that'll be moving out of Wisconsin and Minnesota, moving into southern Michigan and perhaps northern Indiana. Damaging winds are going to be the primary risk here, but a spin-up tornado or two can't be ruled out. We do have some tornado parameters in place here today across central and northern Indiana and southern Michigan. But will the storms be able to tap into those ingredients? That's what we don't know. If they're in a linear mode here, kind of a complex of storms, damaging winds will take precedence with a tornado threat lower, but still there. It'd be a spin-up tornado risk at that point. Here we are at 3 a.m. That messy complex still ongoing across northern Indiana and southern Michigan. And here we are tomorrow. Could still have some lingering showers and thunderstorms moving through the region tomorrow. And then our next risk comes in as our cold front comes in later in the week. So a little bit of uncertainty there. of how the evolution of these storms play out. On your screen here, this is 7 o'clock here this evening. A few scattered showers and thunderstorms are possible across central and northern Indiana after about 5 p.m. here today. There's a big question mark on whether or not these storms are going to be able to form and where they form at, because we don't know if we're going to have a trigger in place. This model here suggests there will be enough of a trigger to get the air rising and ascending with height, condensing into thunderstorms. If storms are able to get up here this afternoon, there is enough ingredients in place, we think, by this point in time that it could be supportive of severe weather, including large hail, perhaps up to golf ball size and diameter, maybe even a little bit larger if we get isolated storms, as well as damaging winds, 60 to 70 miles per hour, and heavy downbursts, as well as a spin up tornado or two, can't be ruled out. So we're kind of an all hazard threat, but it's very conditional if we're going to be able to get storms up at all. That's really the question mark here, and really what I want to stress the uncertainty here this afternoon. The potential is there for these storms to become strong to severe this afternoon with potentially all hazards, but will they be able to fire this afternoon or not? That's what we don't know, and those are the trends that we're going to have to watch going into this afternoon. So the potential is there, but the uncertainty that these storms will be able to fire and where is kind of the bigger question mark at this point in time. We'll go ahead and turn on some of our severe weather ingredients to kind of show you what we mean by that. The first ingredient that we need is instability. Lots of instability. In fact, this is we don't need as much instability this time of year as what we would in July. This is enough instability to support severe weather in July, let alone April here in Indiana. We need about kind of a threshold. So these numbers here, the more instability you see are going to be in the purples and reds and yellows, lesser instability in the blues and greens. The reds and purples is enough instability to support severe weather in the summertime here in Indiana, let alone in April. So we have more than enough instability out there to support severe weather. But storms don't just need instability to be severe. We have to have other ingredients in place to allow the storms to tap into that as well. Here we go at our tornado parameter here today. You can see the highest parameter is going to be up here, up to our neighbors to the northwest, northern Illinois, southern Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Those are the areas that we're going to have to watch for widespread severe weather here this afternoon. If you have any friends in northern Illinois, southern Minnesota, and Wisconsin, those areas in particular have the best chance for seeing a tornado today in those isolated supercells. So what this does here, what you see on your map, so this model is putting together everything that you need that could be supportive of tornadoes. For example, wind shear, instability, lift, all those things coming together to show you where the best area is, where the most spin is maximized, coupled with that instability, where all the parameters are kind of coming together. The brighter reds, yellows that you see, the better, the more spin there is, and just better ingredients for rotating thunderstorms. And you can see we do have some of that here in central Indiana and northern Indiana. So we do have some spin out there today, but the uncertainty is, will storms be able to fire and tap into that is yet to be unknown, but the potential is there. We could have a tornado or two today in Indiana, not completely ruled out. Going back to our moisture here today, it is humid out there today. This is another component that we have in place here today. Here we go right now. Humidity is building. It's surging north. Dew points here today are going to be in the upper 60s, close to 70 degrees in some areas, which is more than enough moisture to support severe weather across Indiana here today. In fact, it's downright muggy outside here today. So if you're having a bad hair day, this is why. Dew points are high. We're in the mid to upper 60s across the state of Indiana here today. So when we talk about severe weather, we talk about SLIM. We need shear, lift, instability, and moisture. We'll have that here today. But the biggest uncertainty is lift. Are we going to have a trigger that will allow storms to fire early this afternoon? Or is the atmosphere going to remain capped, not allowing much to form at all this afternoon until overnight tonight when a messy complex moves south out of Michigan? Those are some uncertainties yet to be determined. And for that uncertainty, but also for the potential, here's a look at the Storm Prediction Center. The Storm Prediction Center has added an enhanced risk across northern Indiana here today in orange. All areas in orange, that's a level 3 out of 5, level 2 out of 5 in yellow, and 1 out of 5 in green. Go ahead and click on Indiana here to highlight that for you. Northern Indiana has the best potential, where the best overlap of ingredients are. The primary hazard, though, for our area, while there is a greater tornado risk across northern Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, Locally, damaging winds is going to be the primary hazard here today. There could be a tornado or two possible, but it's conditional, very conditional, but it is not zero. So do keep that in mind. Anywhere in yellow, so this is the brand new update. This actually was just released in the last couple of minutes. You can see they extended the slight risk down south of Indianapolis. We mentioned that in our severe weather outlook earlier today, saying how there could be some remnant boundaries from the rain that pushed through earlier today. They can leave a boundary, and that can act as a trigger to help get thunderstorms up here this afternoon. That's what we looked at in our forecast model just a few minutes ago, showing that potential for a few isolated storms earlier this afternoon along the I-70 corridor and a little bit north, perhaps. Seeing that, the SPC has dragged the slight risk a little bit further south to accompany that potential for some thunderstorms earlier here this afternoon. All hazards are possible, including the potential for damaging winds, tornadoes, and large hail. If we get isolated storms early, those storms will have the greatest potential for large hail, potentially up to golf balls or even perhaps larger, damaging winds and downbursts, 60 to 70 miles per hour, with the greatest damaging wind risk coming overnight tonight if our complex, our line of storms, can move out of Michigan and into northern Indiana. That'll have the primary damaging wind risk. And an isolated tornado or two can't be ruled out, but I think hail and damaging winds are going to be the primary risk here today. Here's the tornado outlook here today. So the lower risk in green with higher risks in brown with the highest risk in yellow with that hatching here. This is a SIG2 parameter, meaning there could potentially be a strong tornado across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Could have a strong tornado up here in the Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, but there could even be a stronger tornado across Michigan and perhaps far northern Indiana as well. The parameters are there, but the biggest uncertainty is what mode. Are we going to have supercells or a line of storms? Personally, I'm favoring more of a line of storms coming down out of Michigan. That'll lower the tornado risk a little bit, but it'll enhance the damaging wind risk quite a bit across southern Michigan, northern Indiana. I think we're going to see more of a line of storms versus individual supercells. And we'll go back to our forecast model here and we'll talk about that. Going back to our reflectivity here, this is simulated radar. So it probably won't be exact, but it gives you a pretty good idea of kind of what we're talking about here. Isolated showers and thunderstorms possible after about 5 p.m. dinner time here this evening across central and northern Indiana. This model is picking up on the idea that there's a remnant boundary left over from rain that moves through earlier this morning. Along that boundary can act as a source of lift to allow thunderstorms to form. So these thunderstorms, if they're able to form, notice how they're isolated. They're semi-discrete. They're kind of by themselves a little bit. This is suggesting we could have some supercells. These would be capable of damaging winds, large hail, and a spin-up tornado or two can't be ruled out if, it's a big if they're able to form. And we'll keep an eye on that here this afternoon. But the potential is there, and it's worth keeping an eye on. As we go throughout the evening here tonight, notice a big complex is beginning to form in Michigan, as well as northeast Illinois and southeast Wisconsin. This messy complex, capable of damaging winds up to 60 to perhaps 70 miles per hour, depending on how organized it's able to become. The question is, how far south is it going to be able to go? If it comes into northern Indiana, like this model is suggesting, could have winds 60 to 70 miles per hour, northern Indiana. But it's a big if on how strong it's going to be able to become. Notice there's some uncertainties here with how we're describing our risk here today. There's some fail modes. If storms earlier this morning use up some of the instability, this line will be weaker as it moves into Michigan. So we are going to have to watch to see how the atmosphere recovers, how fast we can re-energize after our rain here this morning, especially in Michigan. Some uncertainties that we're going to have to keep an eye on overnight here tonight. Here's a look at our severe weather outlook here today. We have 3 risk zones: risk 1, risk 2, and risk 3. The highest risk areas in red. Winds to 60 to 70 miles per hour, large hail, as well as a couple of tornadoes. Highest tornado risk, though, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. Risk 2, most of Indiana. Think Indianapolis, I-70, and north. Large hail, quarter size plus, could have an isolated up to golf ball size hail. Can't be ruled out anywhere in yellow, especially if we get isolated thunderstorms to develop later this afternoon, as well as an isolated tornado. Can't rule out an isolated spin-up tornado here. Now, the severe weather risk and uncertainty increases the further south you go. You go south of I-70, a little bit more uncertainty. The ingredients are there, but I don't think we're going to have a trigger to get storms up. So southern Indiana, it's just going to be a hot, humid day, but dry overall for areas south of Indianapolis. If a storm is able to form, could have some hail up to quarter size, as well as some damaging winds. Can't be ruled out. But the greatest risk, we believe, is still going to be I-70 and north. Looking at our ingredients here today, our severe weather risk across central and northern Indiana. Conditional tornado risk, we have it on yellow for now. Could go up depending on the scenario that we have here today. If we have supercells able to develop and sustain themselves, we could see this bar go up just a little bit. But for now, we're leaving it a little bit lower due to the uncertainty in storm mode that we're going to have today. Are we going to have storms that develop this afternoon, or are we going to wait until overnight tonight when that complex comes down out of Michigan? And that'll be primarily a damaging wind risk associated with that. Damaging winds, medium, 60 to 70 miles per hour. Large hail up to 2 inches diameter, that's hen egg size. Could have some large hailstones of golf ball to hen egg size in those isolated storms early. This is primarily early this afternoon between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. on those isolated storms along and north of I-70 if they're able to develop. If those storms are able to develop, there is potential to have some very strong updrafts associated with those capable of producing some very large hailstones. Flooding could have some training showers and thunderstorms that move over the same areas again and again. Those could produce some heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall rates could be in excess of 2 inches per hour in the cores of these storms. Depending on how fast you're able to move, will determine on how bad our flash flood threat is associated with them. Overall, most of Indiana, I do expect to remain dry today. Outside of a couple isolated showers and thunderstorms across central and northern Indiana after about 5 p.m. here tonight. And then we're going to have thinner eyes turned to Michigan to see how that storm complex is evolving. Is there going to be a line of storms that move in, and how strong those storms are yet to be determined. So early this afternoon, a conditional risk along and north of I-70 could have a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could be severe with all hazards. It's conditional if these storms are able to develop at all, but we're going to have to keep an eye on those. After this afternoon, our eyes turn north towards Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and Michigan on this complex of storms that are expected to develop a line of storms. How far south are they able to go? And how strong would they be when they get close to northern Indiana? Those are some questions yet to be remained, and we'll continue to watch trends overnight tonight. But in the meantime, stay weather aware and have multiple ways to receive warnings here today. Conditional risk, central Indiana, all hazards possible. And then later tonight, I think the risk will turn more towards damaging winds if this line is able to maintain its intensity and move into northern Indiana. So we'll go to the comments here to see if we have any questions in here for everybody. We got Sage in here. We got Jerry in here. Felicia's in here. We got Cody in here. Tim, welcome. Great to see you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in here. I'll answer them here for the next couple of minutes here before we hop off. But right now, we're just going to kind of wait and see how the atmosphere responds. How are we able to destabilize? And the real question, are we going to get these storms to develop early this afternoon? Or is the atmosphere going to cap off, not allowing the air to arise, to ascend and cool with height? So those are some questions that we have yet. Are we going to remain capped this afternoon? Or are we going to see those storms develop on a surface boundary that is left over from storms earlier this morning? So a little bit of uncertainty there, but the potential is there for strong to severe thunderstorms today across Indiana into the overnight hours tonight. Elizabeth asked, do we think we'll either get a tornado or a severe thunderstorm watch? It's possible. That'll be determined by the Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service. And that'll largely be determined by trends. How's the atmosphere trending? And if storms are able to develop, are they going to look to be long-lived, or are they going to look to maybe fizzle out? If we have storms develop that do pose a multi-hour severe risk potential, we'll probably see a watch, but that'll be determined by the Storm Prediction Center. So too early to know on that. We'll have to continue watching trends to see what the Storm Prediction Center thinks across the region here today. It's possible we could see either one, but it'll depend on trends and what risk is going to look to take precedence. Are we going to see, those isolated storms developing earlier this afternoon? And are they going to have a hail risk, tornado risk, if they develop at all? Those are questions yet to be determined. But we'll be keeping an eye on that here this afternoon. So we'll go back. I see some questions asking about timing and storm mode here this afternoon, probably about between 5 p.m. Eastern time and 10 p.m. Eastern time. There's a potential for a few isolated showers and thunderstorms, primarily north of I-70. There's kind of a surface boundary draped across here. It's very subtle, but it's left over from showers and storms that move through Indiana earlier this morning. That boundary can act as a trigger or a source for the air to rise and cool and then condense into thunderstorms. Overall, the atmosphere is expected to remain capped across Indiana. But if we can destabilize, there's a chance these storms can develop. However, it's conditional. The biggest uncertainty here, whether these will continue or will they not form at all. So these are things that we're going to have to watch before our eyes turn north into a complex of storms, with damaging winds being the primary hazard, but there could be a spin-up tornado or two along that as well. Just trends to watch overall to see, how storms develop, how they evolve, and what mode. Are they going to be isolated, or are we going to see a complex of storms? Those are things yet to be determined, and we're going to have to keep an eye on those as the afternoon continues here. Either way, plan on a hot, sticky day across Indiana. Moisture is high today. Dew points are in the 60s. This is going to feel like June today versus April. It's a very early summer-like day today versus an early spring day across Indiana. But Indiana will have a way to remind you of where we live come Sunday night, when lows are in the 30s across a good portion of Indiana Sunday night and Monday night. So with that being said, I don't see too many more questions here. Go ahead and hop off. If you have any other questions, feel free to tune back to the beginning of the stream. We covered timing, hazards, so on and so forth. Main takeaway here today: isolated storms are possible early this afternoon between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. later this afternoon. Conditional all hazard threat if those storms are able to develop. Again, if these storms are able to develop, kind of a big question mark here if they're able to develop at all, but the potential is there if these storms are able to get up and remain isolated. Large hail, damaging winds, and a spin-up tornado cannot be ruled out with any of those. The main risk is going to be overnight tonight. After midnight tonight, could have a big complex, kind of a messy complex of storms in Michigan that could drop down south in northern Indiana. Damaging winds, spin-up tornado, primary hazards with these storms here. However, it's also conditional with these as to how intense and how organized they'll be as they move south towards Indiana. So a lot of pieces of the puzzle yet to be put in place, but we are starting to see that destabilization occur in Indiana. It's getting quite hot and quite sticky out there here today. And we'll continue to watch trends here this afternoon, and we'll post updates as needed on the page. So with that being said, go ahead and hop off here. If you have any questions, feel free to go back to the beginning of the stream, and we'll continue to post updates as we can here today. It's the overall risk here today is conditional. There's a couple different scenarios at play, but a lot of it is determined on how the day progresses. If storms are able to fire and where they're able to fire. That is the big question mark right now. And should be able to have more information on that here later today. With that being said, take care. Have a happy Tuesday afternoon. And if we do see a widespread severe weather risk, we'll be live here later this evening to cover that in detail. But we'll see how things evolve here today. In the meantime, follow the page here for more updates here today, and we'll be able to post those as needed this afternoon.